Welcome to beautiful Orlando, Florida, where Hannity's on the road, and for the entire hour, we are with Senator Ted Cruz. Welcome, Senator Ted Cruz. Welcome to Orlando. Nice to see you.
It's great to be here.
Wow. Pretty impressive. Look at this. Let me start, Senator, and ask you this question. Did they give you guys sedatives last night? It was the calmest debate I think we've had so far.
Well, look, it was calm, and I thought it was good that we didn't get into, you know, the last few debates had gotten really ugly. I mean, you'd seen a couple of the candidates on the stage just insulting each other, talking about each other's body parts. I mean, listen, I have no opinions whatsoever on any part of Donald's anatomy, and I'm glad we made it through the entire debate without any discussion of it. Yeah, no, it was that was definitely an improvement.
There's so much at stake for our country. Look, we started out with 17 people, and I've said this to my radio and TV audience, unless Senator Rubio and Governor Kasich show that they can win states and compete, it's really a two-person race now.
Yeah,
Is that how you view it?
I think that's a simple matter of math. To become the Republican nominee, you need 1,237 delegates. There are only two candidates that have any path to that.
So you're in the semifinals.
That is where we are. You know.
Let me ask this.
You know, we've got 361 delegates. Donald has 99 more delegates than I do. So we are within 100 of each other.
Now, I just heard somebody say you got to win Florida. Florida, Ohio, Illinois, North Carolina, all coming up.
Florida, and Missouri, don't forget Missouri.
Show me state. Yeah. Florida and Ohio, though, are winner take all.
Yep.
Big contest.
Sure.
How do you define victory Tuesday night?
Well, listen, we're competing everywhere. We're competing here in Florida. We're competing in Ohio, Illinois, North Carolina, Missouri. I mean, we're running a national campaign. And what we've seen so far in the primaries is that we're winning victories all over the country.
Let me ask this. I interviewed John Kasich at CPAC, and he says that, wow, how exciting it would be to have a brokered or contested convention. Mitt Romney seemed, Governor Mitt Romney, it wasn't me, why are you booing me? Mitt Romney seemed to lay out a strategy that says, oh, Marco should win Florida and Governor Kasich should win Ohio. Why do I believe, you also heard about this big meeting at Sea Island, Georgia.
Yeah.
I think there has been an effort from the very beginning to prevent you and Donald Trump from getting the nomination, but the people have spoken otherwise. What do you make, seriously, no, I actually believe that there is an effort now to make sure that neither one of you gets to 1237, and that in a brokered convention, in comes the establishment, and they'll offer a, quote, you know, candidate that will, a compromise candidate. Do you agree with me that that's what their strategy is?
Look, there's no doubt that there are folks in the Washington establishment that that's their fevered dream of go to a brokered convention and parachute in their chosen candidate, and they're frustrated because they've had a whole bunch of chosen candidates. And every one of them, the voters keep rejecting.
But this is really important. If we get to that point, and this came up in the debate last night, Trump said whoever has the most delegates should be the person. Do you agree with that?
Look, there's a difference between a brokered convention and a contested convention. A brokered convention is it's deadlocked and Washington comes in and brings you someone brand new. I think that would be an absolute disaster. Yeah, 76 is a contested. Look, if Donald and I come in and we're neck and neck and neither of us are at 1237, then it's a battle for the remaining delegates. Then that's actually how a convention operates. Now, I don't think we need to do that. My object is simple. We're going to get to 1,237 delegates. We're going to beat Donald at the ballot.
I want to ask you, I go on Twitter, I go on Facebook, I go on social media. Boy, passions are high right now. I got to tell you, they're very, very high. And you will be proud. Your supporters on social media are extremely... I have people... They are extremely passionate about you. And you got some big endorsements this week. You got the great one, Mark Levin. You got Mike Lee, Carly Fiorina. But the two narratives that I do see emerge, and I want to give you a chance to answer this. Yeah. Okay, can Ted Cruz win a general election? These are not my words. And people like Mitch McConnell are still so angry at you. How do you work with him if he's the Senate Majority Leader? Those are the two issues that I read the most.
Right. Well, look, let's take the first one, a general election. What is abundantly clear, if Donald Trump is our nominee, we get killed in the general election. You look at poll after poll after poll, Hillary wallops Donald. The last poll I saw, Hillary was beating Donald by 8 points. Those very same polls, poll after poll after poll, show me beating Hillary Clinton head to head. And if you look at the people we're turning out, the states we're winning, we're seeing record turnouts. I mean, record-shattering turnouts. Republican turnout is dwarfing Democratic turnout.
Why do you think that is? Why is this happening? Is it because of the 8 disastrous years of Obama? It's part of it, right?
People are frustrated. They're angry. People's wages are stuck. You can't get jobs, opportunities going away, and you've got a federal government that doesn't listen, doesn't care, and people are ready for a change.
Let me ask this then, because if I had one issue, Senator, that I would tell you, there is such palpable anger towards Republicans. If you look at all these polls, exit polls, states, it's 65% of Republicans feel betrayed.
Yes.
They feel the Republican Party has, and as a conservative, I'm a registered conservative, I feel betrayed.
Of course.
I feel let down. I feel disappointed. And I've got to believe that your popularity is rooted in the fact that you stood there and you took on your party, but you're hated for it.
Yep.
So explain how, as president, do you get these people to get a spine transplant and go back to the promises they made and actually fulfill the promises that they stood for?
You know, you do it the same way Reagan did. You know, if you think about the last time we broke the Washington cartel, the corruption, the bipartisan corruption in Washington, it was 1981. It was the Reagan Revolution. And what happened was Reagan didn't go to Washington, sit down with the old bulls and say, come on, guys, we've got to stand for something. He knew that was hopeless. Instead, he took it to the people and built a grassroots army, and that tidal wave swept in, and it held Washington accountable. So the two big legislative initiatives I'm campaigning on: repealing every word of Obamacare, and passing a simple flat tax and abolishing the IRS. Now, Sean, neither one of them, those ain't easy. Could I do that in Congress now? No. Why? Because all the lobbyists, all the special interests, let's take the IRS code. It's filled with carve-outs and subsidies and special handouts. That's what Washington does.
Does anybody here? You guys get this? I don't get these carve-outs. They take my money.
And that's the beauty of a flat tax, is that all goes away, and the lobbyists, their power base goes away, and the politician, their power base goes away.
Could you get Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell to go along with that? Because I think that's what people want to know. I really believe in my heart that if Republicans do another promise like repeal and replace Obamacare, but won't use the constitutional authority of the purse, or if they promise they'll stop executive action and they end up funding it, if there's one more broken promise, I think it's the straw that breaks the camel's back for the Republican Party.
Sean, you're exactly right. And could I get Republican leadership to do those now? Not in a million years. They're too captive to the lobbyists. The way you change that is I intend to make 2016 a referendum on repealing Obamacare and abolishing the IRS. And we come out of November with a mandate from the people. But there is also a second thing. In every battle we've had with Obama, we've seen what happens, which is we end up not winning the battles because Republican leadership preemptively surrenders. There's a difference when you have a conservative in the White House that says, if you send me a bill that's filled with corporate welfare, that's filled with pork, I will veto it. That's what a strong president can do.
I think this is really important about Obamacare. You say you're going to replace it. What are you going to replace it with? Because I know more people, average increases around the country for Obamacare this year alone, and I'm sure you're feeling it here in Orlando and in Florida, is up to 40 and 50%.
Look,
I mean, it's unaffordable. We're not saving $2,500 a year. We didn't keep our doctors and we didn't keep our plan. We were lied to.
Yeah, you are exactly right, and Obamacare is a disaster. Number one, it's the biggest job killer in this country. So if you're a young person coming out of school, you're wondering, why can't I get a job? One of the big reasons is small businesses are getting crushed with Obamacare and they can't afford it. People are getting their hours forcibly reduced. You know how many single moms in Florida are waiting tables, are working 2 or 3 part-time jobs? They're at 28, 29 hours a week because Obamacare kicks in at 30 hours a week. You know, and beyond that, what Obamacare is doing to our health care. Millions of Americans have lost their health insurance, have lost their doctors and their premiums. How many people here have seen your premiums skyrocket?
The whole crowd. Wow.
And not only are you paying more, but your deductible's higher, your copay's higher, it covers less. Yeah, you know, my wife Heidi said to me the other day, why are we writing all these checks for medical bills? I mean, our premiums have gone through the roof. And I said, well, our deductible's so high that as a practical matter, we don't have insurance. If you go to the doctor, you just pay for it and write check after check after check. That's what Obamacare's given us. And getting rid of it, repealing every word of it, will lift a burden off small businesses and will produce millions of new jobs.
How about health care savings accounts? Do you support them?
Absolutely, and health care reform, listen, everyone recognizes we're not done once we repeal Obamacare, that we've still got a problem and we need to expand competition. We need to empower patients so that you can make your health care decisions with your doctors without government getting in the way. Right. And I think the keys to doing that are threefold. Number one, allowing people to buy health insurance across state lines. That creates a national 50-state marketplace that drives down cost and expands the availability of low-cost catastrophic care. Number two, what you just mentioned, expanding health savings accounts so you can save in a tax-advantaged way for more routine health care. And then number three, we need to make health insurance portable so that it goes with you from job to job to job. If you lose your job, you don't lose your health insurance. And personal and portable and affordable is much more attractive than the disaster we've got now.
All right, we got to take a break. We're in beautiful Orlando, Florida. We have Senator Ted Cruz for the hour. It's Hannity on the road, and we're glad you are with us. And welcome back to beautiful Orlando, Florida. It's Hannity on the road as we continue for the entire hour. We've got Senator Ted Cruz with us. I want to go back because you talked about a flat tax. I have asked every candidate in every interview, 95 million Americans out of work. We have 40 million Americans on food stamps, 50 million in poverty, median income down in the last 8 years under Obama, and he will leave office accumulating more debt than every other president before him combined. That, to me, is an insurmountable amount of money we're talking about. You know, news came out today. We took in more federal revenues, 1.25 trillion in the last 5 months, but still have a $353 billion budget deficit for that period of time. Government spends too much.
Look, and our problem, we don't have a debt because we're undertaxed. We have a debt because Washington is spending money it doesn't have and digging us into a hole.
How do you get Washington to spend less? I've always liked the penny plan because it's simple. You cut 1 cent out of every dollar every year for 6 years and you get to a balanced budget. But that's part of it. What would you do?
The only way you can do it is, number one, with strong conservative leadership in the White House, backed up by the people. And, you know, one of the striking things last night, in the entire course of the debate, it became very evident that Donald Trump has no solutions to any of these problems.
So he brought that up a lot last night. But I think the question most Americans want to know is, how do you get to a balanced budget? I mean, but eliminate baseline budgeting.
All of that matters, but the most important piece, if you want to turn around the deficit and the debt, is economic growth. If we stay at 1% and 2% economic growth, you can't, the math doesn't work. You can't cut enough. And Donald, at the end of the day, doesn't understand where growth comes from, because Donald, you know, he said a lot of times, he said, listen, nobody knows the system better than he does. And he may well be right, because Donald is the system. He is Washington. And notice his perspective. Donald's perspective is government is the answer to everything. That whatever the problem is, we need more government. And to every issue, he doesn't really disagree with Obama and Hillary on substance. He just says they're not doing a good enough job. He'll negotiate a better deal with socialized health care and Obamacare. And here's the key. If you want economic growth, you know 2 words that never come out of Donald's mouth? Small business. Because To Donald's perspective, the economy is about giant corporations, New York billionaires sitting down with politicians, whether it's Hillary Clinton or John Boehner, and suckling off government and getting rich at the expense of the working men and women. Listen, to heck with big business. The focus of growth has got to be small business.
There seems to be a two-prong approach we need. And that is, one, I think government needs to spend a lot less.
Absolutely.
I would cut a lot of government, maybe not the military. I think our military is deteriorated. And then the other part is the growth factor. Energy independence would add to that.
Hugely.
Corporate inversion, allowing companies, corporations to repatriate.
Right.
There are trillions of dollars overseas. So those are solutions to me, and that's part of your economic plan. Explain how the flat tax gets people out of poverty and back to work.
All right, so let's start with spending, because that was the first part of your question. I've laid out a very, very detailed spending plan, $500 billion in specific spending cuts. Did you notice last night in the entire debate, Donald was not willing to list a single thing he would cut? He wouldn't list an agency, he wouldn't list a program. I asked him, when have you ever stood up to a Washington lobbyist on anything? He couldn't point to a single instance. Donald and Hillary are the flip side of the same coin. They are Washington, they are power, they are big business, they are corruption. And instead, now listen, why do other candidates not do what I've done, which is specify exactly what I'd cut? Because you tick off all the lobbyists. All the people getting the money are real unhappy when you say, I'm cutting your money. Yeah. And they don't want to get attacked. And if we're going to turn Washington around, you've got to demonstrate the courage to take on Washington. It's not being an insurgent, simply to yell a lot and curse and insult people. That doesn't make you an insurgent. It just makes you ill-mannered.
I want to focus as much as I can today on solutions, but you brought up Donald Trump a lot. When he says he's going to build a wall, when he tells me he's going to make America energy independent, relax, all right? And he supports the penny plan. Do you just not believe him? Do you think he's... Well, okay, do you not believe... For example, do you don't think he would build the wall? You think that's all talk?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, it was reported that Donald told the New York Times editorial board that he wasn't going to build the wall, that he wasn't going to deport everyone. He said he went to Manhattan just a couple of months ago, and he told the New York Times, said, listen,
guys...
He
said it was flexible.
No. Okay, that's what he claims he said, but he hadn't released the tape. Yeah. What was reported is that he told them, listen, I don't believe this language I'm using of an immigration. I'm just saying it because it scares people and makes them vote for me, but I don't intend to do it. And he's since claimed all he said is it's flexible, but if he releases the tape, we can all see the fact that he won't release the tape. Donald is telling us he's lying to us.
Let me ask.
And here's the difference. As president, you know, Donald said he'll be a completely different person the day after he's elected. He'll be the most politically correct person on earth. Sean, I will be the exact same person the day after I'm elected that I am today.
We got to take a break. We're in beautiful Orlando, Florida. We're with Senator Ted Cruz for the entire hour. He has a special guest he'll be bringing out here. And welcome back to beautiful Orlando, Florida. It's Hannity on the road. And for the full hour, we're joined by 2016 Republican presidential candidate, Senator Ted Cruz. Good to see you again, Senator. All right, so Governor Palin's mad at you because you said Trump supporters are low, Rush uses this term a lot, low information voters. But you want to appeal to every supporter of every other candidate.
Absolutely, yes. And listen, I understand why people are backing Donald Trump. People are angry. They're betrayed, as you noted. They're tired of politicians who are lying to them. They're tired of the corruption in Washington. I share all those sentiments. What happens, though, is when people start to actually examine Trump's record, they realize he is what they're angry about. You don't fix the corruption by supporting someone who has been enmeshed in the corruption. And look, his argument last night, here's how the Washington cartel operates. You get career politicians in both parties. You get Hillary Clinton and John Boehner sitting at the table, and you get the special interests like Donald Trump. And Donald writes big checks. He writes them to both. They, in turn, take care of him. He gets richer and richer. They put in laws that let him do like what he's doing in Florida, abusing the immigration laws, bringing in foreign workers, and hurting American workers. And Donald's argument is, okay, for 40 years, he's been part of that corruption, but now suddenly, we're going to put the fox in charge of the hen house. He's been corrupting it for 40 years. Let's take out the middleman. And by the way, you know, one of the amazing things he also says...
On the flip side of that, by the way, you got a big endorsement today from National Review.
Yeah, look.
That was a big endorsement.
What we are seeing is conservatives uniting behind our campaign, and that is happening more and more every day. And it's because if we're going to stand up to Washington, you've got to have someone who actually has stood up to Washington, who's taken on the lobbyist, who doesn't look to government for every solution. Look, my answer to every solution is the people. Get government out of your way. You want to know what I'll do as president? It'll be to get the federal government off of your back.
Please, thank you. I'd really appreciate that, and I know everyone here would. Let me ask you, the issue of Islam came up last night. I don't say it the way Donald Trump says it. I'm my own person, but there is a huge cultural divide. Supposedly we have an alliance with Saudi Arabia, but I think they've been gouging us for years on oil. I think they have been duplicitous. Yes. I think they've played both sides of the fence. The same with Egypt. They even elected Mohammed Morsi at one point, the former head of the Muslim Brotherhood, a guy that once referred to Jews as descendants of apes and pigs. So on the one hand, it seems we have radical Islam. That's easy to talk about. But we really do have a problem with Islam, considering women are second-class citizens. You are not free to practice your religion. You don't have freedom of speech in these countries. And you were talking last night about how we've got to involve them as part of the solution. Aren't they all combined as states part of the problem, especially under Sharia?
Well, listen, whether it is keeping this country safe and fighting radical Islamic terrorism, or whether it is restarting the economy and bringing back jobs, we need a president who knows what he's doing. You know, if you have a car that's broken down, your car's broken down in the driveway, you have one of two options. You can go outside of your car and start yelling and cursing at your car and hoping that'll somehow fix it, or you actually get in there and fix the engine so that it runs.
So here's the problem. How do we deal? For example, we have the president wants to take in now 65,000 Syrian refugees. The president's envoy to defeat ISIS, General John Allen, our National Intelligence Director, James Clapper, our FBI Director, James Comey, have all said ISIS will infiltrate, like they did in Paris.
Of course they will, and they've said they're going to.
The refugee population. So if anybody is coming from a country that practices Sharia, don't we have to worry that they are radicalized in their views and think women should cover themselves and not drive a car and can't go to school or work?
Absolutely, yes. It's why I've introduced legislation to ban any refugees from countries where al-Qaeda or ISIS control any territory at all.
What about Saudi Arabia?
And it's why I've been leading the fight to stop Sharia law here. No international law has any authority in America. But the critical thing, Sean, people are scared. They're scared. We see these terrorist attacks. We have this President Obama, who acts as an apologist for the Islamists, and people get even more angry. And so Donald's vitriol, his insults, I get they're cathartic. It feels good to yell when you have a president that's not keeping us safe. But I'll tell you, on policy, I have real concerns about Donald Trump's policies, that I think he is far too weak on radical Islamic terrorists. When Donald says, as he did last night, he would keep in place the nuclear deal with Iran, that is foolhardy. And the problem is Donald thinks he will just magically negotiate a better deal. That's the same thing he said with Castro. He'll keep in place with Castro, negotiate a better deal. Listen, we have had a policy for centuries. We don't negotiate with terrorists. Iran wants to kill us.
I agree with that. And it's scary what the president has done here. What about states like Saudi Arabia, countries like Egypt, that play both sides. Haven't we been played enough by these countries?
I will tell you that there's a difference between the Saudis and Egypt. I agree with you. Saudi has had a terrible history of the royal family funding Islamists, trying to buy them off, buy the crocodile off, so they eat them last. And we need to stand up and exert real force over Saudi Arabia, demand that they behave as allies and not be funding those who are killing us. I will say Egypt is different. Listen, President
General Sisi, it's different. But
President
just a short time,
Al-Sisi
is much different.
He has demonstrated a courage. You know, I wrote a book last year, Time for Truth. I actually quote a speech that President Al-Sisi gave at Cairo University, the same university.
That was a courageous speech.
It was January 1st, a year ago. Al-Sisi stood up and he called out radical Islamic terrorists. Now, he did that as a Muslim leader. He's literally putting a bounty on his head. The Islamists, the jihadists want to murder him because he said as a Muslim, we have got to stop these radical Islamic terrorists, and his army is tracking them down. They're imprisoning them. They're
somebody
fighting
we can
them.
work with.
I mean, why is it that Egypt's Al-Sisi is stronger at going after radical Islamic terrorism than Barack Obama is?
Or Hillary Clinton.
Or Hillary Clinton.
All right, one other thing. I meant to bring this up earlier when we were talking about process. Marco Rubio earlier today told his supporters in Ohio to vote for John Kasich to stop. Why are you laughing?
Listen.
Listen, I have to ask you about the news.
I'm just laughing because it's the Washington establishment's last gasp. Let's divide things up. Let's play games. It's real simple. How do you beat Donald Trump? You beat him. You beat him at the ballot box. And at this point, Sean.
See, I think they want to stop you. Wait a minute. I believe the establishment does not want this man or Donald Trump to win. I just believe it.
There's no doubt about it.
I think there should be a fair fight, a good debate. Let the American people decide. But I believe they want a brokered convention and then say, oh, this will be the consensus candidate. I believe that with all my heart.
Look, at this point, our campaign has beaten Donald 8 separate times. We won a landslide in Iowa. We won a great victory in Oklahoma. We won an incredible landslide in my home state of Texas.
A lot of delegates there.
We won as geographically varied as from Alaska to Maine. We won both of those. We are winning. We won Idaho. We beat them in Minnesota. We are winning over and over and over again.
Got to take a break. All right, we'll take a break. We'll come back. When we come back, a special guest that recently endorsed Senator Ted Cruz as we continue from Orlando, Florida. It's Hannity. Hannity, we're on the road. We're in beautiful Orlando, Florida with Senator Ted Cruz for the hour. Now also joining us, Carly Fiorina, who I got to know over this long campaign and come to admire. You made a big endorsement for Senator Cruz.
Well, I did, and I was proud to do it. You know, I'll tell you how I got there. It was before I even had a long meeting with the senator, and I live in Virginia with my husband Frank, and I went into the voting booth.
You decided right there in the voting booth?
Well,
I kind of like Ted. All right, let me flip this one.
No. Let me tell the story. So I see my own name on the ballot. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And I think about all my supporters, and for a moment I thought, oh, you know, maybe I should cast a vote, not for me, but for my supporters. And then I thought about, why did I run for president? Because I think we need a real conservative in the White House. Because I think we need someone who's actually going to challenge the system. Because I think we need someone who's going to stick to the substance. Not talk about spray tans, not talk about body parts, actually understands that these are serious times and serious issues and they need serious solutions. And when I thought about all that, I thought, this is a man who I know the kind of nominees he's going to put in the Supreme Court. And let's face it, the Supreme Court hangs in the balance. This is a guy that I know is going to reform Washington, whether it's the IRS or repealing Obamacare or the Veterans Administration. And here's something else I know from personal experience. I have led change all my life. And when you do that, you challenge the status quo. It's actually what leadership is about. And when you challenge the status quo, you make enemies. It's part of it. It's why most people won't lead. It's why most people don't have the courage to challenge the system. So you know what? We're known by the company we keep. He is known by the enemies he's made. Good for him. Good for him.
You know, said this to you privately, and I think I've said it on the air. One of the things I really admired about how you ran your campaign, and Senator Cruz, I think you would agree with this, I think you were one of the most effective prosecutors against Hillary Clinton and how bad a president she would be. So I think that's a big endorsement. Senator, I know you're happy about it. Is she on your short list for VP? Look.
Get him the nomination first. We keep jumping ahead here.
Well, it's my job to jump ahead. I get paid to do that.
Sean, I'll say this. Carly is extraordinary. I mean, she was a remarkable business leader. You know, CEO of a Fortune 50 company. That is a big, big deal. One of the world's most respected companies. And she ran an incredible campaign. She is a serious thinker, and you're right, she's standing up and fighting for conservative principles. I'll tell you, I'm humbled to be here with her and to have her support.
Let me throw a whole different question out here, because, you know, I've had the honor of getting to know all 17 of you in a pretty intimate way, and I have deep respect. Trump is right about one thing. It's hard running for president. There's nothing easy about it. I know the long hours on the road and time away from your family and speech. You don't even know which city you're in some days. Let's be honest. So it's really hard.
It's Orlando.
Yeah, all right. I know, we're having a magical time. But
although I continually have nightmares of waking up in Orlando and saying, "Good morning, Cleveland." So it hasn't happened yet, but it
might happen.
On the road, there are moments where you worry that
there will be that TMZ moment for somebody. Here's my question. There were so many talented people along the way. If you do win the nomination, how many of those 17 people do you think you'd want to reach out to be a part of a unity government almost, and with the purpose of, you know, all these people that are out of work are suffering.
Sure.
All those people in poverty are suffering. All those people on food stamps are suffering. All the people that are paying 50% more for health care are suffering. Our country is suffering. Our kids are suffering.
Yes.
I don't like the trajectory of where we're headed.
Right.
Do you think that could happen, something that has never happened before? I think about that. What do you think?
Absolutely. I mean, I think one of the incredible things, you look at the 17 people who started. I mean, we had a depth of talent. We had people who were young, dynamic, charismatic, passionate, principled.
Bobby Jindal, Scott Walker, John Kasich.
Incredible leaders. Yeah. And I've said from the beginning, back when there were 17 of us, I said any Republican president would be a fool for the men and women standing there not to comprise a significant portion of the cabinet. I mean, we've got phenomenal talent. And what is important, Sean, is that we fix these problems, that we put in place leaders for whom it's not lip service.
Solutions.
Solutions to the problems, and leaders who understand we work for you. It's why I don't like Donald asking people to pledge support to him. This is not about us. It's not about a candidate. It's about the American people, and we need to pledge our support to you.
All right. Here's my question. You know, we've heard you last night. I've interviewed you a lot. I've gotten a lot of specifics from you.
Yeah.
How firm are these promises? Flat tax, wall at the border, your plan to carpet bomb ISIS, all of the health care repealing, replacing, and all these other things. How is there any room for negotiation, or this is your solemn pledge to the American people?
Listen, this is my solemn pledge. There are many criticisms that have been lobbed at me, but being overly flexible is not one of them.
I'll ask Ms.
And anyone who stands up, now listen, there are areas on which you can have room for compromise. Marginal tax rates. If we sat down and battled like crazy and fought to reduce the tax rates and I couldn't get it to 10%, I'm going to fight tooth and nail for 10%. But if we end up cutting it to 12%, Reagan said, what do you do if they offer you half a loaf? Answer, you take it. I'll take 12%, celebrate, and then you come back for more. So there are areas in which you should compromise, but the key point, you don't compromise on principle. You don't compromise on the Constitution, on the Bill of Rights, on the Second Amendment, on religious liberty. principle you don't compromise away.
We'll take a break. We're in Orlando, Florida. It's Hannity on the road. More with Senator Ted Cruz and Carly Fiorina. And when we come back, we'll hear from this wonderful audience. On the road, we are in Orlando, Florida, as we continue with 2016 Republican presidential candidate, Senator Ted Cruz and Carly Fiorina, who has endorsed him. All right, we're going to take questions here. Sir, you're up first. By the way, nice shorts. You should see how cold it is in New York. We're glad you're here. Welcome,
Thank you.
Welcome.
As a former service member and a airman, I'd like to know what you plan on doing for VA health care.
Yeah. Well, sir, let me start by saying thank you for serving this country. Thank you for stepping forward. What's happened with the VA has been an absolute disgrace. And two things are going to change if I'm elected president. Number one, there's going to be accountability. Anyone who has wrongfully denied care, anyone who has kept bogus books, anyone who has lied, if you wrongfully denied care to veterans, you'll be dismissed, and if you've broken the law, you will be prosecuted.
All right,
but the second change that I think is critically important is that veterans should have the right to choose your own doctor. And that's the fundamental change that, listen, if you want to go to the VA hospital, that's your right. You've earned that right. But if you want to go to the cardiologist at the local Catholic hospital down the street, you should have the right to do that. If you work at Walmart or you work at Disney, you have the right to go to that hospital. Why should we treat our veterans worse than workers in the private sector? That doesn't make any sense.
Let me thank you, sir, for your service. God bless you. Thank you. Let me ask this question. Speaking of criminal referrals,
anybody in mind?
Yeah. Let's say that the FBI makes a criminal referral to the Justice Department and it is ignored, and you become president, statute of limitations is not passed. Would you aggressively go after Hillary Clinton if the FBI believes she committed felonies?
Absolutely yes. And there's a principle here that matters, that this country was founded on the principle that no one is above the law. And whether it is the Clintons or whether it is some in the Republican Party who think they're above the law, that the law doesn't apply to them, that's not how it works. We are a nation under God and under the Constitution, and the law needs to apply fairly to everyone.
We have a minute left. Real quick.
Hi, Senator Cruz. My name's Erin. I'm a volunteer who drove from Texas to campaign for you, and I wondered how electing you compared to the other candidates in the race would impact the Supreme Court and the other federal
That's a great question.
courts.
Well, Erin, thank you for being here. Thank you for your passion and your hard work. Listen, the Supreme Court hangs in the balance. We are one liberal justice away from a radical left-wing court that would undermine our religious liberty, that would undermine our Second Amendment, that would give away U.S. sovereignty and make us subject to international law in the World Court. And there are two candidates effectively in this race, Donald Trump and me. Donald has said he will negotiate with Harry Reid and Chuck Schumer and compromise on the Supreme Court on Justice Scalia's replacement. Any replacement that Harry Reid and Chuck Schumer sign off on is going to be a left-wing activist. And Aaron, I give you my word. Every justice that I appoint to the court will be a principled constitutionalist who will ferociously defend the Bill of Rights.
All right. Senator, thank you so much for the hour. Really appreciate it. Carly, great to see you. Thank you, Orlando. Thank you, Orlando. We really appreciate it. Unfortunately for all of you back home, that's all the time we have tonight from beautiful Orlando, Florida. We're having a magical time. And don't forget, Florida will be voting, Ohio will be voting, Missouri will be voting, Illinois will be voting, and we'll be following it all right here on the Fox News Channel. And Hannity, thanks for being with us. We'll see you back here on Monday.